Hi, everybody. Welcome to the night lab tutorials for the Anything for Salinas and Social Justice bus tour. We're going to get started just because it's actually a very interesting topic. And because we're doing the slide on Clifton versus Puente, we're going to start off with how to really navigate the night lab website. So let me see if I can screen share this window real quick. Yes, you should be able to see this window. Let me know if you can see it. Oh, you can't see it? Okay, let me go from there. Okay, so you should be able to see the window now. And everything in this window, it just covers Night Lab. And Night Lab's run through Northwestern University. It's a really cool website with a bunch of different applications. Today we're going to use Story Maps. And Story Maps is really easy to log into. All you have to do is just click right here, sign in with your Google account. Right, this is mine right here. It's really, really easy. And then these are all the documents and all the story maps that I have thus far. I'm going to click on the Anything for Salinas one. And if you've been watching the tutorials, the the tour is actually going to go to multiple different sites. It's going to start off at St. Anthony's Hotel, and then it's going to move over to a bunch of different spaces in San Antonio. So let me just give you an overview of what Night Lab looks like. So this is the Night Lab website and what it does with story maps. And story maps is really cool because it's just basically a glorified PowerPoint essentially, but you get to add geolocations of different spaces across cities, towns, the Earth in general. As long as you have the address or as long as you have the location of it, it would actually go from there. So in the past tutorials, we did St. Anthony's Hotel. We have done the Selena ETC Boutique, right? On the north side, we have done Sunset Station. And then today we're going to do Clifton versus Puente. And this is the very interesting space because for the Selena movie, it actually represents that moment in time where AB Quintanilla is talking to Selena and her brother, and or Abraham Quintanilla is talking to AB and Selena, and what's really happening here is that he's telling them the experience of being Mexican American, living in the United States, and what does that really entail. And I think it's just a very unique perspective that he's giving them, but it's also really cool that he's giving them in this space because in this space, exactly where they filmed this, this is actually the space of the famous court case Clifton versus Puente, and this is a court case literally about a battle between acceptance and entrance into a neighborhood in San Antonio by a Mexican American family. And the person that's going to be leading this court case is Abadan Salazar Puente. And he's going to be helped out by Carlos Cadena and Henry B. Gonzalez and Alonso Perales, which are these heavy hitter Mexican American civil rights leaders at that point in time. And what he's trying to do is trying to get a house on the south side of San Antonio, really where this location of this movie's actually at right here. And where they're going to cross in the movie is this street called Mayfield Park. And Mayfield Park's a very interesting one because Mayfield is actually named after Earl Mayfield, which is the KKK um, congressperson from Texas. And what we end up finding out if we do a little historical research is that the person that's in charge of this entire neighborhood is called Thurman Barrett, and he was the campaign manager for Earl Mayfield in Dallas. And he ends up moving to San Antonio much later, Thurman Barrett, and he ends up establishing a bunch of these communities on the south side of San Antonio. Now, on the south side of San Antonio at this point in time, and this is like really around like the 1920s, 1930s, what we see here is that this is a very segregated spot of San Antonio. And all of his covenants and on his houses, the documents that you sign basically over to the deed, all of them have this racial restriction that says you cannot live here if you're an African American person, and they say it with the N word, or if you are a Mexican person, a person of Mexican descent. And with that being said, this is when we enter the world of Abaddon Salazar Puente, because what he does is he's trying to buy a house, but Thurman Barrett and a previous homeowner try to blockade him from owning that house because of that racial restricted deed. And what that does, it sets off a whole chain of events of how this is going to look in a post World War II world, because this is one of the biggest court cases that's going to happen in the state of Texas, and it's publicized everywhere. And so today we're going to look at a little bit of research on how to find some of these things for this court case, and it's really easy to do so, especially going through different databases that you have. The court case is very unique, so when we actually just Google it, it's actually just going to come up right here, right? So I'm just going to Google Clifton versus Bentham. And what we find here, there's already a lot of material on it. There's even a short video that talks about it, though. I recommend seeing that. I think that's just a really good video and synopsis of it. But you actually see the real court case right here, and you actually see his name on file and everything else from it. And it's very cool. It gives you even the block number where his edition was at on Mayfield Park edition. It gives you who's in the court room at that point in time. He's really battling against this guy, Clifton, and his wife, PJ Humphreys. And what we start seeing here is Puente is a naturalized American citizen. He was born in the Republic of Mexico and parents who were Mexican nationals, and is admittedly a person of Mexican descent. It is therefore apparent that if effect by be given to the literal word of the racial restricted covenant and forfeiture to the clause, title would revert to the Southwestern Acreage Company and by reason of Humphrey's sale to Puente. And this is where we get to like the real court case. However, what's also unique about this court case is that African American civil rights group, the NAACP, is actually taking another similar court case for African Americans in St. Louis. And what that court case already sets as a precedent is that the Supreme Court will state that any of these restricted racial covenants cannot be abided by because they are illegal according to the 14th Amendment because they violated. And then within only days, really, the first court case to uphold this actual Supreme Court case is actually Clifton versus Puente, because the Texas State Supreme Court, the Texas courts will actually get this, and they were like, well, we can't really do anything for you, Clifton, because it's outright Puente's property because of this court case that just came up. And so that basically diminishes any ability that the racist racial restriction in the deeds actually have. So I think that's a very interesting mix of what's happening here. But when we look even further into this, you can actually just research some of this stuff and who he was on Heritage Quest. This is through Ancestry.com. If you have an Ancestry, it's actually a little bit better because it allows you to see more. But if you're a part of any public institution, mainly in the state of Texas, this is probably the one that you have access to. If you're in San Antonio and your college or university doesn't have access to Heritage Quest, you can simply just go to the San Antonio Public Library, and they do have access to Ancestry. You just have to have a public library card. I recommend doing that. It's actually a really cool thing to have. But if we even look up Abaddon Salazar Fuentes' name, we're gonna actually find some stuff. And this is based in San Antonio. So you want to find Bexar County because that's the county of San Antonio. But the only reason I put Abaddon Salazar as his middle name because some of these documents refer to their last name or the first name as really as a part of their middle name, right? Because they don't have a really clear distinction, especially in early documents. So let's just see this. Actually, we're going to find some pretty interesting things too, because instantly when we start looking at him, we're going to find this record right here. So we're just going to view these records, and it's really his gravesite. And it's a very interesting place because he's buried outside of San Antonio with the rest of his family. and this is in Polk County, Wilson County in Polk, Texas, and it actually has his birthday, and it actually has his death day, right? So when he deceased, so he lived up to 86 years old, and he actually was able to live in that house that it was located in. And this is just a pretty interesting, unique court case that we start seeing is tied to this location where this scene was at, which is just a coincidence, really. But if you're looking to add information, all you really have to do on these slides is click on a slide or create a slide, right? It's going to ask you to add a slide, create a slide, and then you're going to be able to upload different information. So for me, I just uploaded the YouTube video of this scene. I thought that was a really interesting mix. I thought I put it up where I have access to some of this information, courtesy of Ancestry.com, of course, right? And then I put a little bit about this location right here and what the court case really meant, right? It's really, really easy. I found the location just by simply looking at the spaces and back of this van scene right here, and I was able to indicate that it was on Somerset Road. And then if you don't have a specific location and you can't find a specific location, I really just recommend just clicking. And what it's going to do, it's going to be able to drag this little icon around, and you'll be able to see where you can put it, right? But sometimes you can have a very specific location. I just looked up businesses around there and I just indicated it right there because that's where they're traveling through. And this is on the south side of San Antonio. So let's just zoom out. So our hotel is in the middle of downtown San Antonio. This scene is actually filmed on the south side of San Antonio right here, right? And I just think it's a very interesting part of the movie, but it's also a very unique part of just this civil rights initiatives that are being executed by Mexican Americans in this kind of world that they're living in after World War II, where they were accepted outside of the United States, but when they're coming back to the United States, they're going to feel this unacceptance, and they're going to feel how race really fits into their identity. So we're going to see a lot of different civil rights organizations pop up, right? LULAC had always been there, but we're going to see the American GI Forum come up too during this time. And then these are going to be the predecessors to what we see in the Chicano movement, because out of these Mexican American middle class groups, we're also going to see the first initiatives to fight against Supreme Court cases and to advocate on the ground in these kind of controlled spaces of government. And rather than being protesters outside, even though they were, they're really using the courtrooms to try to navigate this place and try to get first class citizenship. Now, when we get to the Chicano movement, that's also going to change that kind of dynamic because we're going to look more for public direct action. And then we're also going to get a younger group of activists coming in. So this is an older style of activism. And it's very much based in the time period that they're living in, right? So they're looking at whiteness, they're looking at um, treaties, they're looking at different perspectives. The treaties would be like the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. They're looking at foreign policy, like the Good Neighbor policy. They're looking at what was it? Their active duty soldiers, like the GI Forum, right? They're looking into was it the GI Bill, which are these like controlled things by the government that they think they can change to as well. Rather than only look at education, we have to kind of expand it out to looking at housing, and housing becomes a fundamental issue, especially when we deal with redlining, because that's what it's really based off of, right? We get the segregation of them, but we also get the prohibition of them. Oh, sorry. Oh my gosh, them being prohibited from moving outside of these communities. It thus circulates the same type of wealth gaps in between richer neighborhoods and lower class neighborhoods. And in the lower class neighborhoods, this is where we get the high concentration of different racial groups because they just weren't allowed to even move out of them. So this court case kind of brings this to light of how this is changing in the city of San Antonio. So I'm going to stop it right there. I'm going to stop sharing right there. I hope I kind of shared a little bit with y'all. I know I can't you can't see my face. I'm sorry. That's just the way my camera's working, but I hope to upload this for everybody. It's going to be under the YouTube videos. If you have any questions, please let me know. My name is Dr. G Morales. I believe I sent you an email a couple of weeks ago. If you need more help, if you need more information, please just let me know. You don't necessarily have to focus on the court case in this sense. You just have to briefly like mention it and summarize it, maybe in one or two sentences, but really bring out what you think about this one actual part of the movie. And I think that could be very much like a very unique way to connect who you are as a person and how this part of the movie really fits into not only identity, but space and race and class and ethnicity and gender, because this is a very unique perspective that this movie's trying to tease out at this point in time. So have a nice day. Good luck out there. I'll see y'all next time. Until then, have a great, great, great weekend. Bye.